So, I don't know if you guys know my weight loss story, but several years ago in 2012, I started on my journey to losing weight, and I was not vegan by any means. I was still eating animal products. And I all I knew is that I wanted to get this weight off of me. Somebody asked me recently, like, what got you on the journey to where you are today, like to the level of health you are today. And it's like, why did you do it? And why were you motivated? And I'm like, insecurities, right? And so I started my own journey to optimal health in 2012. I was overweight, about 60 plus pounds overweight. I was approaching 190 pounds. I'm 5'8" for reference. And I all I knew is that I was sick of being insecure in my body and I wanted body confidence, right? And so this was before I became vegan. This is before I knew what I know today about nutrition science, about lifestyle science, and about exercise science. And all I knew in 2012 is that I had a coworker. I was working as a foster care worker, and I had a coworker who was fit. She was always strolling through the office with her calves popping, her arms popping, her muscles popping. And she just had body confidence. And I knew that I wanted the same thing. And so when I started on this journey to health, it was all for personal reasons, like most health professionals. And it was in pursuit of a body that I could be proud and confident in, right? And so I lost all my weight before I became a plant based vegan. So I want to answer this question about can I eat meat and dairy and still be healthy from a different perspective today? Because I actually didn't become vegan for health reasons. And so my whole experience is slightly different from the average plant based individual. However, I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of teaching, I do a lot of coaching, like a ton. And this is a question that I'm asked often, especially when I do speaking engagements, and of course, I'm presenting the power of plants, I'm talking about the power of plants, but people always want to know, like, but is it necessary for me to go all the way? Like, do I have to give up all meat, eggs, dairy, and seafood? Or can I eat meat and dairy and still be healthy? So let me tell you what happened for me. And then I'm going to give you my more direct sciencey answer. And I'm going to give you my personal experience. Okay. So I started my journey in 2012, started on a weight loss journey. I hired a personal trainer. She helped me start losing my first 30 pounds. Tiff helped me lose my first 30 pounds, Coach Tiff. She still actually works for me today. She still works with us. She's a coach inside of our Farm to Table plant-based coaching program. And I lost the first 30 with her. Then I moved out of the country and I lost another 35 pounds on my own. Now, it's very important to understand this part of my journey, which is I was not vegan yet. So when I lost 65 pounds, this was before living a plant-based lifestyle. So I lost weight still consuming animal products. And when people hear that you're plant-based or hear that you're vegan, and they also learn that you had some type of health transformation, for me, it was weight loss, they automatically assume the transformation happens because of the vegan lifestyle. For me, that is not the case, right? I lost weight before adopting a whole food, plant-based vegan lifestyle. This is very important to answer this question for you guys, right? And so I lost weight in 2012, 2013, lost 65 pounds, got down to a healthy weight, then started putting some weight back on intentionally to rebuild muscle and definition and to really get the aesthetic that I desired. And I can tell you that definitively for me, because I was like having on my own journey and really making sure that my only goal at the time was to look good in my clothes. Like my only goal when I was losing weight was to look good in my clothes. So first, let me preface this by saying, when I became a plant-based vegan, I didn't have any health challenges, right? I didn't have any health challenges. Like I was already down to a healthy weight because I consider being overweight a health challenge. Let's be clear where I stand on that. I 100% believe if you're overweight, you have a health challenge. Okay. So me personally, when I became a plant-based vegan, I did not have any health challenges, including being overweight. I wasn't on medication for anything. I wasn't diagnosed with anything. I wasn't pre anything. I wasn't pre-diabetic. I wasn't pre-hypertensive. Like I didn't have any red flags from a chronic disease and lifestyle perspective when I became a plant-based vegan. So someone just asked me, literally just yesterday, like, what was my origin story for being vegan? Like, why did you go vegan? Because a lot of Black people, a lot of people of color specifically, go vegan for health challenges, right? There's other populations of people who typically go vegan for compassion reasons, right? The earth, the welfare of the animals, the environment. But most people of color that I coach, the hundreds of people I've coached over the years in the past 9 years, we typically go plant-based for health reasons, right? And that was not my situation. I actually didn't go plant-based for health reasons, and I didn't become a plant-based vegan for compassion reasons. I became a plant-based vegan for professional reasons. When I lost 65 pounds, y'all, it like sparked this passion and this excitement in me about health. And so I decided to come back to the United States. I was living in China at the time, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for work when I got back to the United States. And I knew I didn't want to go back into social work. So I decided to work in the health space and become a personal trainer. So when I say I went vegan for professional reasons, it was because at the time I was literally trying to research the best dietary approach that would help clients lose weight and extend life expectancy. Like, all the different ways that you can lose weight don't necessarily ensure longevity, right? And so I wanted both. And so I started studying nutrition to help my clients better as a personal trainer. And I'm studying nutrition and I'm learning nutrition science. And I got certified as a personal trainer, and I'm taking these nutrition classes, and I got certified as a behavior change specialist. But I know I needed to understand nutrition so that my clients as a personal trainer could have better results. And that's when I discovered this plant-based thing. And I'm like, yo, what's this? So you take these animal products out of your diet, and allegedly you're supposed to really reduce your chances of these chronic diseases, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, autoimmune, type 2 diabetes, all of these things. And I'm like, So I started trying it out on myself. So I started removing animal products out of my diet, and I essentially became a pescatarian, right? And so I became a pescatarian. And so I was only eating seafood for a while before I went completely plant-based vegan. So I'm eating seafood, and, of course I'm feeling better. Now, remember, I had lost 65 pounds before going vegan. So when I became a plant-based vegan, I lost an additional 5 pounds, but not a whole lot. Because I don't know if y'all know this, but the closer you are to your healthy ideal weight, the harder it is to lose weight. Some of you guys have probably experienced this, where you're on a weight loss journey and it comes off fairly easily at first. And then the closer you get to your ideal weight, the harder it becomes. That's when we start hearing words like plateau come into the conversation, right? I plateau. Yeah, because you're getting closer to where you're supposed to be. So it's harder to lose. And so I lost an additional 5 pounds when I became a plant-based vegan. And but what really changed for me, like what really changed for me when I became a plant-based vegan, because I wasn't watching numbers like my blood pressure or my cholesterol, because those were not a concern of mine, I noticed how my mind worked differently. And so every time I tell my plant-based origin story to different audiences, I'm always sharing how my mind went from like 0 to 60, like the mental clarity, the creativity, the ability to concentrate, no hyperactivity. Like, it was just like crazy. I was running a couple companies at the time, mine and someone else's. Someone had asked me to step up and be the executive director of their company. And so it was a lot going on at one time. And I was still working as a personal trainer, trying to get my first business off the ground in 2015. And so it was a lot happening at one time. And my mind, I was like, wow, I'm able to navigate my task and things differently, right? And so when I became a plant-based vegan, I can tell you I was already healthy from our low standards that we have in the US. So let me be clear. I did not have a diagnosis. I was not on medication for anything, and I wasn't pre anything, right? So from the average standard definition of health, when I became a plant-based vegan, I was already healthy, okay? And so the question when people ask me, can you eat meat and dairy and still be healthy? Because I lost all my weight still eating meat and dairy and didn't have a diagnosis. The answer is yes, you can still be healthy and eat meat and dairy. However, let me put this in a perspective for you that I need you guys to understand and consider. First of all, the very first thing we need to consider is how do you define healthy? How I defined healthy back in 2012 and 2013 before I went vegan is very different from how I define healthy now that I'm on the other side of being a plant-based vegan. What I used to believe healthy meant, and this is the overwhelming majority of people's definition, okay? I used to believe healthy meant the absence of disease. That's what I used to think healthy meant. So if your question is, can I eat meat, eggs, dairy, and seafood and not have a diagnosis? The answer is potentially yes. I'm not even gonna lie, right? First of all, there's way more non-vegans than there are vegans, right? There's way more people who still have an animal-based diet than not. And suffice it to say, like 100% of those people are not diagnosed with something, right? So if we're just looking at numbers, right, it is possible to still eat animal products and not have a disease. But the caveat here is that you're defining healthy based on the presence or the absence of disease. I no longer define healthy based on the presence or the absence of disease. So can you still eat meat, eggs, and dairy and be free of a diagnosis? Absolutely. And this is what people do, right? So people will say, especially if people are overweight, because people don't consider themselves unhealthy if they're overweight. Okay, to each his own. But people will say, well, I'm overweight, but my doctor said my blood pressure is good, my cholesterol is good, my A1C, which is our marker for type 2 diabetes, is good. Like I don't have anything, like I'm not diagnosed with anything. I don't have any medications. I'm not prescribed anything. And so they consider that healthy. When you only define health based on the presence or absence of disease, you are setting the bar for yourself really low. What happened to me when I lost the weight, changed careers, and then became a plant-based vegan is I went from good, the absence of disease, to great, which means thriving. There's a difference. So not having a disease doesn't necessarily mean you're the most optimal version of yourself. So let me tell you some things that happened that aren't necessarily related to a disease, but that was evidence that I wasn't optimal. Okay. So when I became a plant-based vegan and I finally gave up dairy, y'all, like shout out to the women for sure. When I finally gave up dairy, a couple things that happened just giving up dairy alone. Number one, no more cramps, no more PMSing, no more painful periods. So painful periods and cramps is not a diagnosis, right? And so most women will assume, well, I'm still healthy even though I'm experiencing that. But you don't know that you can be optimal and that doesn't have to exist for you. So when I got rid of dairy and when I got rid of refined sugar, my period is much shorter. Like now it's down to like a couple of days. I have no more cramps, no painful periods. My skin is clear. I don't break out. I also no longer have that pudge in your belly. You know what I mean? Like I used to have like a little mini PUFA, right? Is that what they call it? And so that's gone away. So my stomach has completely flattened out now. When I say flattened out, I mean I can flex on y'all like abs. Like let's be clear, your girl out here, okay? Over 40 flexing. Okay. So my stomach has completely flattened up, which means I no longer have chronic bloating. Let me put this in terms that I need y'all guys to understand. See, people think I don't have a diagnosis that the doctor has diagnosed me with anything, but what's happening, even though you don't have a diagnosis, you're still eating animal products and you're still experiencing these things like painful periods. You're still experiencing things like chronic bloating, right? For me, let's even talk about the mental clarity. I no longer have brain fog. Like I'm currently writing a book, and when I sit down, I can write. Like it can flow. When I have to create content to present to you guys, when somebody books me to speak, when an organization reaches out to us and wants to consult with us, like I can create beautifully. So the absence of brain fog, I no longer have hyperactivity in my brain. My nervous system is calm now, right? So I'm not constantly anxious or jittery or feel angst, right? And so my nervous system is at rest. My body is at a place of homeostasis, meaning balance, okay? And so when it comes to things like my skin, when it comes to things like the the experience of my period, when it comes to things like how I mentally am able to perform, when it comes to like mental, emotional intelligence and mental stability. So like if a problem arises or, life's for all of us, I navigate that differently now, right? So looking at my mental health, looking at my emotional health, but then also looking at aesthetics physically, right? So when I perform, so I work out 6, sometimes 7 days a week. It's no good. My masseuse is always on me. I don't stretch. I don't recover. I don't do myofascial release. I don't do foam rolling. I'm a horrible workout person. To be a former personal trainer, I'm not the best advocate for it. But I work out regularly. I just don't do all the recovery stuff, right? So every time I go to my masseuse, she's like, really, Lise? Like, really? Everything's tight. You ain't stretching. What is happening, right? But I said that to say that I work out really hard multiple days a week and I recover phenomenally. Like there are people, animal-based diets can compromise your recovery sometimes. And so I recover phenomenally from my workouts and I'm able to get up and do it again the next day. Like I feel amazing, whether I'm running, whether I'm doing plyometrics, whether I'm doing calisthenics, whatever it is, or whether I'm doing something more low impact like yoga, like just like my flexibility, my agility, and my recovery is super dope. My energy level, so how I rest, the quality of my sleep, all of that has been significantly improved. And when I say significantly, I'm talking about statistically. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I feel slightly better. It's like, yo, I'm not the same version of myself I was before I started eating this way. And so when people ask me, can I eat meat and dairy and eggs and seafood and still be healthy? The answer inevitably is it depends on how you're defining healthy. And then I have one more perspective that I want to share with you guys. But it's very important to understand that if you're only defining healthy as the absence of disease, then the answer to the question is yes. You absolutely can have an animal-based diet and not necessarily have a diagnosis. And that's what most people base it off of. Like, well, I've been eating this for years, or I eat, my chicken every day. I like my salmon, Lisa. I like my seafood. I like my shrimp. I like my crab, and, I like a good steak every now and then. They'll be like, I do burgers, but not every day. Like they like to break down their whole regimen for you. Like I only eat the egg whites, right? And so they're like, and I don't have anything. And by that definition, I can totally understand why somebody will be like, there's no reason to give up all these yummy things that I love and I feel fine. But you don't feel phenomenal. You just don't have a disease, right? Like I said, I was still having, like I remember when I was still just pescatarian, I had gave up meat, eggs, and dairy, but I was still eating seafood for a while. And I remember distinctly, like every time I would eat seafood immediately or like the next morning, I would have the mucus in my throat. I would feel the mucus. But of course, I'm fine. I feel like my normal self. I'm just mucusy, right? And so I would feel the mucus in my throat when I clearing my throat, coughing, all of that stuff, right? And so, but even though a lot of you guys are experiencing stuff like that, like a lot of you women might be experiencing painful periods. Some of you men might be experiencing, some erectile dysfunction, but you don't categorize it as unhealthy, right? You're just like, oh, this comes with age, or being a woman, cramps and painful periods or extended periods or excessive bleeding or whatever. It's just part of being a woman. Or if you're a woman who has approached menopause and maybe you're like extreme hot flashes and vaginal dryness and cold, stiff joints, and you might, or excess weight around your midsection, you might be categorizing that as a natural stage in life. And you don't know, nobody has exposed you to the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. And so because you don't know that it doesn't have to be that way, because you believe that, you put on a few pounds when you get older, or experiencing some memory loss is normal as you age, because you think that way, because you believe that, you assume that you're still healthy and these things are just supposed to happen. And I'm here to tell you that becoming a whole food plant-based vegan has literally aged me in reverse. So I'm chronologically getting older. Biologically, I'm younger. Chronologically, everything is moving forward. Biologically, things are moving backward. I feel like I look and perform much younger than I did 10 years ago. Facts. Y'all should see my before picture, right? And so here's what I need you to understand about an animal-based diet versus a plant-based diet. And in all fairness, I'm a address the question that's on the other side of this. But I'll do that in a minute. There's two words that I need you guys to understand when it comes to eating meat and dairy and not, and the the susceptibility to disease. Okay, trying to be fancy. Let me sip this doggone tea. Okay. There's two words that I think people sometimes use interchangeably, but that will really help put this in perspective for you. And those two words are possibility versus probability. Possibility versus probability. So here's the deal. The data shows, guys, this is not anecdotal, this is not circumstantial. The data has overwhelmingly shown since the 70s specifically. Dr. Dean Ornish was one of the first doctors to reveal this. The studies and the stats have statistically shown that when you remove animal products out of your diet, you significantly reduce the probability of having heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, gut issues, autoimmune diseases, and even mental health challenges like depression and anxiety, right? So from a probability standpoint, like, okay, is it possible for me to eat meat, eggs, and dairy and seafood and be disease free? Absolutely, it's possible. Your probability is higher that you will have a condition, though, on an animal-based diet because of the growth hormones, because of the saturated fat, because of the cholesterol, because of the low quality of these things, because of the acidity, a whole ton of things, right? And so the probability is higher that you will have health challenges, but it is possible to not have them. So the words that we need to understand to put this in perspective for ourselves, to make your own decision. I'm not here to sway anybody, but I want you to know the difference between probability versus possibility. Is it possible for you to still be healthy, meaning disease free? I don't know if it's possible for you to be optimal, but it is possible for you to be disease free on an animal-based diet, period. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's not like everybody that eats chicken and eggs is going to have a disease or a medication or a diagnosis. Absolutely not. Right? There's no 100% guarantee in either direction. Okay. So is it possible to be free of a disease and consume an animal-based diet? Yes. Your probability is increased, though, when you eat the saturated fat and the cholesterol and the growth hormones and all of these things and the hormones on a regular basis. The probability of having something is much higher than somebody who doesn't consume those things. Nobody is better than the other person. I don't think I'm better than somebody because I don't eat chicken or salmon. I don't think I'm better than somebody because I don't eat dairy. I don't think that I'm untouchable because I don't eat those things, right? But is my probability lower? Yes. Not because I feel superior. It's because the stats and the data show that people who follow a plant-forward, vegetarian, and then even taking it to the next level, which is vegan diet, the instances of those diseases are just lessened in this community. It's just is what it is. It's a probability game, right? But is it possible? Is it possible for you to have for us, me being a vegan and you being a not vegan, is it possible for both of us to get cancer? Absolutely. Is it possible for both of us to get heart disease? Absolutely. Is it possible for both of us to have hypertension or high cholesterol? Absolutely. Is it possible to be a plant-based vegan and have a diagnosis? Absolutely. Is it possible to be a meat eater and have a diagnosis? Absolutely. Where we differ, our possibilities are the same. Where we differ is probability. Does that make sense, y'all? And so me adhering to this lifestyle is not because I think it completely eliminates the chance of me getting something. It just significantly reduces them. And so if I'm playing the numbers game, I'm going to go where my probability is higher for being optimal, right? And then also it's important to note, like I said earlier, that I was healthy, i.e. disease-free, when I become a plant-based vegan. I was at a healthy weight and I didn't have a diagnosis. But optimal didn't come until I got rid of the dairy, until I got rid of the seafood, until I got rid of the eggs. The optimal was the things that you know about yourself that aren't necessarily a diagnosis. Like for me, it was the brain fog. It was the extra stomach fat. It was the uncomfortable periods. It was the random breaking out of the skin. It was the energy levels being lower than I would ideally like them to be. So you can be disease free, but I don't know if you're going to be free of all the things that you want to truly eliminate to be the absolute best version of yourself. And so what I believe happens sometimes when people consume an animal-based diet and don't have a diagnosis is they allow their good to become the enemy of their great. They're like, well, I feel fine, so why would I change anything? Like I'm about to throw this grilled chicken breast on this salad. I'm gonna steam me some fish and all of that. And you can do all of that and be disease free. But sometimes if we've never been introduced to the most optimal version of ourselves, we don't know what we're missing out on. Now, as I wrap up, in all fairness, I have to address the inverse, the other side of this question. So the original question is, can I eat meat and dairy and still be healthy? Which means I have to beg the question in all fairness and answer, can I be vegan and be unhealthy? Right? Like we got to be fair here, right? Because neither one is a guarantee of anything. Yes. First of all, it's a whole bunch of y'all listening and watching right now that is very much identify as plant-based or vegan, and y'all unhealthy AF. Okay. So let me make sure I'm fair in this conversation, which is you can eat meat and dairy and not have a diagnosis, and you can vegan space. There is a probability, possibility situation. Are you a whole food plant-based vegan? I did one of my students inside of my plant-based certification, she asked me to pop up into her class last night, right? So I did a pop-up in her class last night, and I was asking her students questions and just helping them along. And one young lady, she raised her hand and she was like, man, I did the vegan thing for about 3-4 months. And she was like, but I ain't do it right. She was like, I'm gonna admit I didn't do it right, y'all. She's like, I was a junk food vegan. She was like, I literally, when I went vegan, I set out to find the best meat and cheese substitutes. Like I ate all the processed food and all the stuff, right? And she actually said last night, she was like, I gained weight when I went vegan, right? Because she wasn't a whole food plant-based vegan eating primarily fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, but she was a junk food vegan eating the processed stuff. And her only requirement was that it was absence of animals. Right. And so there is a difference in your approach to this lifestyle. But can you identify as vegan and be unhealthy? 100%. You can be overweight. 100. Somebody just tagged me in something on Facebook. Matter of fact, it was like a vegan group. Shout out to Patrice, and she tagged me, and because the woman had made a post in the group that says, "Help me, y'all. I'm a fat vegan and I don't know what to do." Right. It's so messed up, the pressure that comes with identifying as vegan. Like you're not allowed to be overweight as a vegan. You're not allowed to cough as a vegan. You're not allowed to sneeze as a vegan. Like there's so much pressure to be healthy all the time. Like literally there's so much pressure. Like, why your edges ain't growing in? Ain't you vegan? Like y'all expect us to be like the creme de la creme. It's so crazy. But so, I was just tagged in that the other day, and Patrice tagged me in the comments like, Lisa can help you. You want to make sure you're whole food, plant-based, blah, 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 right? And so it is true. Like you can definitely have health issues and identify as vegan. And it's a shame because, vegans are kind of ousted because we're like have a reputation for being extreme, and some vegans are elitists and have a superiority complex. I ain't got none of that, but it does exist. And so I'm part of that subculture. And so, I'm going to get labeled that way. And so it's sometimes hard to even make recommendations for people because they're like, oh, here comes the vegan. You know what I mean? But I'm not that person. However, it is possible to be unhealthy and be vegan, just like it's possible to be, disease-free and still eat animal products. But again, we have to consider probability versus possibility. It's possible for vegans and non-vegans to both have a diagnosis, to both be sausages, like your canned meat, like those canned soups and all that, your frozen like lasagna, that frozen processed canned meat, right? Your cold cuts and all of this stuff, the sausages and links and patties that we put on the grill. Now, it is a fact that all of that is a type 1 carcinogen. So you're for cancer, just eating your hot dogs and your sausages and your bacon and your cold cuts, you're making your turkey sandwiches, you're giving your babies the Lunchables with the processed meat and the processed cheese in there, the canned soup with the little chunks of chicken, that stuff, that's a carcinogen. Like that causes cancer. We're not talking about it's linked to cancer. We're not talking about correlated to cancer, but that data came out, years ago from the World Health Organization that processed meat is a type 1 carcinogen, right? And so your probability that just speaks to the probability of having a health challenge when we're eating these animal products, and then the seafood, right? The microplastics that's in the seafood, the heavy metals that's in the seafood, and then they medicate the fish now as well because the sea is so dirty that they have to medicate them to keep them alive from all the toxicity that they're swimming in, right? And so it's just a probability game. But could you go years and eat that stuff and not have a diagnosis? Absolutely. But what we don't know is that we don't know the amount of microdosing that you're doing, microdosing toxins over the years, right? Because by the time, for example, you get diagnosed with cancer, you've been had it. Like the day of diagnosis is not the day of conception, right? And so by the time you get diagnosed with a condition, what most people don't realize is that you didn't get it that day. It's been building up and you've likely been feeding it and contributing to the growth of it for years, right? And so what we want to do is just as much as possible lower our probability of having these issues. But is it possible to live into your 80s and 90s and consume animal products? Of course it is, right? Vegans ain't the only one walking around as centenarians, right? But what we do know about centenarians and blue zones in these areas of the world that has the highest concentration of the longest living people is that they practice a primarily plant forward diet, mostly plant-based diet, right? And so it's just really speaking to probability versus possibility. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that my choice to adopt this lifestyle and maintain it all of these years is not because I think I'm untouchable. It's not a superior thing. I'm still at risk for health challenges being a plant-based vegan, but the possibility is lowered. And the other thing that's important to remember too is that you have to stop defining health as just the absence of disease. Like I surpassed that definition of health years ago. Every time I speak to an audience now, they ask me like, what keeps you motivated to not eat a burger? Like what keeps you motivated to not eat the deliciousness that is cheese, right? And it's because I want to maintain my status of optimal. I'm no longer worried about like diabetes. Like I believe if I have, like I don't eat sugar. I don't eat refined sugar at all. Like I don't moderate it. I don't eat it, right? And I know for a fact, if I did decide to, what's the word y'all use? Treat myself. It's so crazy. We treat ourselves to disease promoting stuff. Anyway, shots fired. Anyway, if I decided to treat myself to a vegan dessert or something like that, a donut or something like that, I don't think that I'm all of a sudden going to be at risk for diabetes. I'm too clean, right? Like it will take a lot of moderating that stuff. Y'all like to moderate the disease promoting stuff, right? Oh, I'm throwing shade today, ain't I? So it will take a lot of moderating of the sugar and the dairy and all of that for me to eventually get to a place where I'm at risk for a disease. So it's like, Lisa, what could it hurt if you had it just one time every few months or something like that? I can tell you, even though I won't have a disease right away, I'm also not even afraid of being overweight again, right? Even though I'm not going to be overweight right away, even though I'm not going to have a disease right away, why do I still stay away from all of it? It's because my status will drop from optimal to healthy. I believe there's levels, right? And so most people consider themselves healthy if they don't have a diagnosis, but most people cannot say they're optimal, right? I believe I am optimal. Like in my, I'm in a mastermind, right? And one of my coaches in my mastermind that I'm in, every Monday, he asks us, we do this check-in, and he asks us how we're doing emotionally, mentally, and physically, right? And he knows, like, I'm always going to be like, oh, physically, I mean, forget about it. Like I'm a 12 out of 10, you know what I mean? And that's optimal to me. Like a 10 out of 10 would be healthy. Optimal will be a 12 out of 10. That means I am above and beyond just being disease free. And I think that's what being a plant-based vegan has done for me. Like I believe I can be free of disease and still eat animals if I eat a quote unquote clean animal diet, right? Still staying out of the drive-thrus, trying to make y'all like the organic and all that meat. Like, Lisa, what if I buy it organic? Lisa, what if I buy the hormone-free stuff, right? So like this elitist approach to eating meat. Okay, cool. So if I did it that way, right, where I was still eliminating junk food and all of that stuff, then I do believe absolutely I could be disease free. But that's just a 10 out of 10. That's just a 10 out of 10. A 12 out of 10 requires me to be plant-based experience. Like for me to have no brain fog, for me to have all the energy, for me to not have chronic bloating, for me to have like a healthy reproductive health system as a woman, right? Like all of that, like the clear skin, like all of that, like the thick edges, right? Like all of that requires me to have no saturated fat, no cholesterol, no hormones, none of that stuff in my diet. It's a difference. None of the acidic protein. I prefer for my kidneys to process plant protein versus the hard stuff like the animal protein. Like there's so many that like I prefer to get like all the fiber and all the vitamins and minerals. I think that's why I'm thriving. So for me, thriving optimal is a 12 out of 10, but you can't be a 10 out of 10 on animal. Does that make sense? Like you can technically, I know people who are on a quote unquote clean animal based diet. And so it's not to judge, you're not going to drop dead for something just because you eat meat and dairy, but it just depends on how you define health. And so for me, it's not just the absence of a diagnosis, but it's the presence, it's optimization, taking it like 2 steps higher, right? And so I guess the Lisa-ism for today, if I was going to leave you guys with anything, the Lisa-ism for today is something that I've been saying for literally years. And I've repeated it 1,000 times today, which is the absence of disease is not the presence of health, right? And so now we probably got to edit that a little bit and say the absence of disease is not the presence of the most optimal version of yourself. Right. And so I want to make sure that you guys know that bragging all the time about I don't have a diagnosis, I'm not on medication is that's the cost of entry. Like that should be the standard, right? It's like how we always get mad at men for saying they take care of their kids. Like, nigga, that's what you're supposed to do. Ooh, my bad. Like that's what you're supposed to do, right? Kiwi, can we edit that out? Got in my feelings. But it's like that's what you're supposed to do. Like you're not supposed to have a disease. You're not supposed to have a diagnosis. And so us calling that healthy to me is like kind of cheating a little bit. Cause it's like, duh. Like, I don't think people know that we're not supposed to be sick. We've normalized sickness so much that when we're not sick, we call it healthy. Y'all get what I'm saying? And so I just really want us to set the bar higher and understand that there's levels even above being disease free. Right. There's levels even above being disease free that we should be striving for. And then when you strive for those levels, you'll realize like, I can't afford a burger every now and then. Like I really can't afford this cheese. I really can't afford the mucus that is created when I eat the seafood. Like I really can't afford the cholesterol from the seafood. Like I really can't afford, like, I just want us to set the bar for how we define health higher. When the bar is set low, you like, man, my grandma ate bacon and drank cognac every day and she ain't dropped dead. It's like, oh, so your bar for being healthy is just being alive. Wow. So so whether or not you can eat this stuff and be healthy depends on how high or how low you've set the bar for health. Because for me, it's all about still mountain climbing, having abs, and running a company seamlessly over 40, right? And then it's gonna be over 50, and then it's gonna be over 70 on y'all, right? I'm going to continue to age biologically in reverse, even though I'm chronologically aging. Does that make sense? And so if you just define it as being disease free, do your thing, baby. But if you trying to like run sprints, I was sprinting on a treadmill recently and I think I got up to that go up to like 9 miles per hour. And I'm like, wow, you really getting at least like because you have evidence around you of people who are not. Like we got our peers, like let's not even front. Like we got evidence in our personal ecosystems of people who are same age group, y'all kind of follow the same trajectory in life and they not aging in reverse. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, no, I'm trying to keep my edges thick. I'm trying to keep my skin clear, my teeth good, my energy levels high. Most importantly for me is my brain though. That's the most important thing for me. Like I create too much to compromise it. And so while even if I decided to eat a little bit of the mess, eat a little bit of meat, eat a little bit of animal products, eat a little bit of sugar, eat a little bit of that, like do all this excess oil, while I won't have a disease right away, I will literally drop from a 12 to a 10 on the optimal scale. And that will happen immediately. I mean, literally, like the next day I will wake up and be tired. The next day I will sit down and try and create some content or write a curriculum or put a pitch together and I will not be my best self. And so while the disease will take a while, the optimization will fall immediately. It's like putting bad gas in a premium car. Like, dang, as soon as you drive out the gas station parking lot, you like, oh, We got a bad batch. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I can't afford. I can, a 10 out of 10 is no longer the bar for me. Like I don't need to be 100% anymore. I need to be 120% for my assignment and where I'm going. And so for that, for me, it requires this whole food, plant-based, sugar-free regimen. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. Can I eat meat and dairy and seafood and still be healthy? Listen, guys, if you want to see for yourself, and you're really interested in trying this thing out and you need the guidance, guess what we're doing for the first time in the history of my company? Okay. We're doing a 30-day plant-based vegan SOS free, salt, oil, and sugar free challenge. So I'm super excited about this. So this is our first time doing it. Like we're planning all the challenge stuff out now. So here's how it's going to happen. Here's the timeline because I need y'all to get in on this thing. It's a free challenge. We're doing the run up to the challenge in the month of May. So the wait list is open right now. We're approaching a couple hundred people on the wait list right now. The wait list is open right now. The wait list is going to be open through the end of April. May 1st, we're kicking off the run up to the challenge. Okay. So what that means is for the entire month of May, myself and all of my plant protocol coaches, we're going to be dripping content to you to get you prepared to prep. May is prep month, basically. We're going to be prepping you for June. We're going vegan and SOS free come June 1st. But May 1st to May 31st, we're doing the run up to the challenge. Every week, we're going to be prepping you for the challenge. We're going to be giving you content to help you understand things like how to read labels, how to eat, giving you recipes, telling you how to prepare your kitchen. But most importantly, teaching you what you need to believe to really do this thing. And I told y'all earlier, I popped in one of my students' group last night. I'm just so proud of myself, y'all. I really set out in 2021 when I created this certification. I really set out to duplicate myself. I'm like, I want to get all these people healthy, but I can't do it by myself. So I need to create other plant-based coaches, right? And it's just a full circle moment. It was just a blessing last night for one of my coaches that I've trained, right, to be a plant-based coach and run her own plant-based community, to invite me to her community that she created since she's been in my program. I'm like, dang, you really can manifest the hell out of a dream. Anyway, y'all didn't ask for that. Okay, so last night I was telling them, like, behavior follows belief. And I was also telling them that one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to living a plant-based vegan lifestyle is they're thinking so long-term and they're so worried about sustainability and whether or not they can do it for the rest of their life that they don't focus in the moment on the fact that this is a treatment plan for what you're battling. So here's how I need everybody to look at this 30-day challenge that you're going to do with me, okay? All of you guys that sign up for this free 30-day vegan SOS free challenge, right? And we're going to have VIP options, but it's free, okay? But some of y'all be wanting that extra attention, those extra perks and opportunities, and we're going to give y'all that too. But here's what I need you to treat it as. If you're going to work with me for these 30 days, from June 1st to June 30th, we're going to do the run up in May, and we're going to kick this thing off in June. And you're going to allow me to coach you through the adaptation of a whole food plant-based lifestyle that's SOS free for the month of June. If you're coming in with a health challenge, I need you to treat this as treatment. Don't treat it as like, oh, I'm just plant curious and I just want to see what this life is like and just want to I need you to treat it as treatment. I mean, I need you to be all in. I need you to be all hands on deck. I need you to treat it as if you are going into a treatment center for something. It's like if you get diagnosed with cancer and you and a doctor come up with a treatment plan, you are going to follow that to a T. Like you're like, what I need to do to get this cancer out of my body so I can get on the other side of this thing? What do I need to do to keep it in remission? Like, tell me what to do and I will follow it. So if you're coming in and you're going to work with me for 30 days on this is how most people don't take this approach to challenges, but I'm not most people, praise God, right? And so I'm going to be treating you as if you are trying to beat something. So some of y'all going to come in overweight. Some of y'all going to come in hypertensive. Some of y'all going to come in with chronic fatigue. Some of y'all going to come in with brain fog. Some of y'all going to come in with an autoimmune condition. Some of y'all going to come in with skin issues. Some of y'all going to come in with reproductive health challenges, want to have a baby, painful periods, erectile dysfunction. Like y'all going to come in with all these issues. I'm going to be treating you as if we're treating something. Like this ain't, I'm just playing curious and I can play around with this thing. I'm treating it as we got 30 days to put this thing in remission or get the ball rolling on this health, like, you know, and get this weight off of you. And I need you to treat it the same way. I need both of us to be on the same wavelength. Like I'm going into treatment with Lisa and starting in May. That's how I need you to treat it. Starting in May, I'm going into treatment with Lisa. We're doing a run up in May, and then June 1st, I'm like checking myself into the treatment. So this is how I need to, if this is the language I need y'all to use to understand that we about to beat this sugar addiction, we got about to beat this dairy addiction, we about to be like, I need you guys to treat it like that. So at the end of the 30 days, you can come out a whole new person, like a different version of yourself that you have never been introduced to. I was telling Kiwi and the whole team when we were talking about this, like, yo, the issue is, especially if somebody doesn't have a diagnosis, is they've never been introduced to the optimal version of themselves. And so they don't even know what they're missing out on. Y'all see what I'm saying? Like, you like, Lisa, I don't really have nothing. So I want to do your challenge because it's free and I want to see what it's like. But if I have one meal that don't taste good, I'm going to be like, I can't be vegan. That veggie burger was disgusting. Or I tried that recipe and it wasn't yummy. And so because you're not in your mind in a state of pain and suffering, you think, this is optional. You know what I'm saying? But I need you, whatever is not optimal about yourself in this moment, I need you to bring that to this challenge as you do it with me. And I need you to treat it as treatment. Like, I need you to throw all caution to the wind and go all in. Like, I'm not touching that mess because I just want to be introduced to the most optimal version of myself. Lisa said I was a 10 out of 10, but it's possible to be a 12 out of 10. Let me see what that be like. You know what I mean? Let's see what that be like, right? And so that's how I need y'all to treat it. So don't show up in my challenge, you know, on this 70% mess. Don't show up just coming in there just trying to be nosy. Like if you ain't coming in and go all the way, just take your name off the list. I don't care if it's free. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna bring in all the energy and all the effort, and I need you to do the same. Okay? So that's how we're gonna treat it. So Kiwi is gonna drop the link. It's, if you're on Instagram, it's in my bio. If you're on YouTube, we're gonna drop it in the show notes, and we're gonna drop it in the caption on this video. And you guys get on my list. We've already started dripping stuff out yesterday to the couple hundred people that are already on the list. I sent them my recipe book because I want them to try this recipe for this banana bread, y'all. Is how I sweeten. One of the best ways I sweeten. I take care of my sweet tooth. And so I dropped that recipe to them yesterday. So they already getting goodness, just to be clear. We already giving out content for people who are already on the list. And so I need you guys to do the same thing if you know that you're doing better, but you ain't your best. Right. Shout out to Terrence, who always be on and supporting. Terrence quoted me recently on Facebook where I said, listen, we can do better by ourselves, but we need help to do our best. And so that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. You can do better by yourself. For sure. You can reduce that amount a little bit. Absolutely. You can move into excessiveness to moderation by yourself. Yeah, absolutely. You can start incorporating a little more exercise by yourself. But when you show up to the workout, are you squatting as low as you can squat without a trainer standing over you, right? Are you pressing up as much weight as you can press without a trainer standing over you? Like when you show up, like in the kitchen, like, are you really giving it your all? You can do better by yourself, but you need help to do your best. I promise you. It's been proven. That's why I don't plan on being coachless anytime soon. That's why I keep a coach, because I can do better by myself. Like I'm sweet with it, right? But I do best when I have a coach. And so I believe the same thing is going to be available and true for you guys. Look, shout out to Debbie on Instagram. She said, let's transform, y'all. Shout out to Debbie. She took Farm to Table, our plant-based coaching program. Then she came over to the Plant Protocol and got one-on-one coaching. And I'm telling you, it changes the game when you have a coach. It changes the game when you have a community. And it changes the game when you have someone who's truly passionate and dedicated to this stuff. And they're just not doing it. But it's important that you can trust the person you're being led by. So I hope you guys can trust me enough to lead you to this lifestyle just to see what it's like. You do what you want come July 1st, but let's say May 1st to June 30th. You all mine. All right. You all mine, y'all. Listen, thank you for the likes. Thank you for the hearts. Shout out to Terrence on YouTube. He said locked in. He's already registered. Listen, y'all better come get this help. I ain't playing with this thing. So in case you missed it, the Lisa-ism for today was the absence of disease is not the presence of health. And we remixed it a little bit based on the topic today, which was the absence of disease is not the presence of your most optimal self. Optimization. That's what I'm here for. So I'll be back here next Monday talking that talk. I'll schedule the topic and everything for next Monday. Get y'all butts registered for the challenge. Get on the wait list now for the challenge. We're going to open up registration May 1st. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.